Rebel Force Radio presents
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
This is the RFR Mandalorian After Show.
Well, I guess you could say leave it to the director of, Bring It On, to really bring it on here as we close up Chapter 16, Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Great to be with you all. Glad you could be with us here on The Mandalorian After Show, the final Mandalorian After Show, evaluating Season 2 as we've come to the end, and what an end it was. I'm seeing online, I'm seeing words like vindication. I'm seeing words like rejection. Rejection of Jake Skywalker. But I will tell you, I don't know about that, but I will tell you that this episode gave me feelings that I haven't felt. And I'm being very serious. I have witnesses, or at least one witness, to my reaction of this episode. Feelings that I haven't felt since I was 6 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old. And I've seen a lot of Star Wars since 1983, but nothing, honestly, has hit me the way that this did. And it goes at a different level. It's not about the quality. I mean, you can't say that things that have happened in the prequels and the sequels and the standalones and the animation that hasn't been beautiful. But nothing has quite hit me the way that this did. I mean, the X-Wing, the cloak, the black glove, the lightsaber, the gradual reveal of this was something that I just, at every moment I said, okay, well, that'll be it. That'll be it. They'll roll the credits now. Oh, we saw a black glove. Roll the credits. But, man, they just kept going and kept going and kept going and gave us one heck of a moment. So we're glad that you're all here. We're expecting a big group tonight. And we have a fantastic guest for you this evening. But first, introductions in order. If you're new to the Mandalorian After Show and Rebel Force Radio, my name is Jason. And with me, of course, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Oh. Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Oh,
that was very dramatic reveal. That was very dramatic.
If I can sum up this episode, it's just in 3 words. Oh, my God. And I walked away as the credits were rolling. And, yeah, sure, roll the credits. There was even more after that, and we'll get into that. But I just was walking around my house at 3 a.m. saying, oh, my God, 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 oh, my God. And did I get emotional at 3 a.m. by myself watching this episode? Hell yeah, I did. Oh, my God. So we'll talk about everything. We'll talk about how it hit us in the feels and everything else about this incredible season finale tonight on The Mandalorian After Show.
And I can't think of oh my God. And I can't think of anybody else better to have this week and this week in particular, just because I know from many, many conversations what an episode like this must have meant for him. And of course, I'm talking about our good pal from the UK, Mr. Paul Bateman, joining us on video. How about that? On video. Look at that, will you? I mean, it's like I could just reach over and kiss him right here. This is great. Oh, you're waiting for that. It's so great to have you, Paul. It really is. And I gotta let everybody know that I jumped online, like probably a lot of people did, to see if Mr. Hamill had anything to say, and he was very cryptic here at 2:34 p.m. and just put a post up on his Twitter saying, "Seen anything good on TV lately?" And who's the first one to reply, at least on the timeline, is Paul Bateman, saying, "Paul, well, you should say what your tweet was."
That's better. We missed you, kid.
Oh.
There it is. We
sure
missed
did.
you, kid. And indeed we did. So here, let's just get into it. The tale of the tape this week for, again, Chapter 16, The Rescue. The name of the episode, directed by Peyton Reed, who also brought us Chapter 10, The Passenger. Also the director of Ant-Man. I led with Bring It On. That's burying the lead. But I thought I couldn't think of a way to bring Ant-Man into the conversation, but I thought they really did bring it with this episode. So I think we'll be forever grateful to Peyton Reed. And one guy I know that we'll be eternally grateful for is Jon Favreau, whose stock just rises for me with each and every episode. But he was, of course, the writer of this episode, and its original air date or stream date, December 18th, 2020. And my morning started, I'll say, with a text from Jimmy Mack. I always grab my phone as soon as I wake up, and I see, really it's just to see what Jim was doing from, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 a.m. to anywhere between 3 and 4 a.m. And I got a text from Jim. I want to read it just to be, this went out to me and Bill. And he said, guys, all in caps, followed by 3 exclamation points. Must watch Mando season finale ASAP. 4 exclamation points. Don't get spoiled. That was at 4:10 a.m. So, Jim, I asked you before we started recording tonight. I said, is that early or late? I can't tell sometimes with you and your schedule. Is that early or late?
Late. I was, prepping the weekly RFR until about midnight and then launched that bad boy, our 2020 Star Wars year-end review show. And I started prepping myself by watching last week's episode, The Believer. And even though I still had 15 minutes left in The Believer when The Mandalorian, the season finale, launched, I couldn't tear myself away from it. I had to watch all of The Believer, which I've seen 20 times already, to get fully primed for this episode. And it clocked in at about 45 minutes, maybe a little longer. And I watched it once, and then I was a puddle. Then I watched it a second time, and both times I noticed Bib Fortuna in the credits. And then I turned it, I go, oh my God, I said, Bib Fortuna is in this. So I watched the episode then a third time. I stopped right when I saw the credit. It said Bib Fortuna, so I rewound to the beginning and watched the whole episode again. And I was like, oh, Bib Fortuna isn't in this. So I watched the credits again to make sure I saw that right. And the credits then ended. And then I saw old Bib. Wow, what a surprise. And that was Matthew Wood. That was Matthew Wood. Yeah, recreating the role that he brought to screen in The Phantom Menace, briefly, when he is there with Jabba at the pod race, and he slaps Jabba on the side of the head to wake him up. But, yeah, Matt's back. And it looked like
they couldn't get, Michael Carter? Was that his name?
Is Michael
is he
still
no longer
with
with
us,
us?
Paul?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I thought he was still around, but he's been he hasn't been all that common on the convention circuit. I know he did them for a good while, but I wasn't aware if he passed away.
He's still around.
But
he's still around. Yeah.
Matt Wood is right there. I mean, where they're filming the show, and I think Michael is a resident of the UK. By the way, thanks to Drew Media Australia for the super chat, saying what a great community. Thanks to you all. Star Wars is unified again. I hope so. I hope so. And you know what? Even if it's not, that's okay, because we got a great episode out of it. At least I'm satisfied.
Me too.
But
me too. The old brother podcast also says, thanks for being our source for the Force. Boba taking Jabba's throne. Wow. And and Ethan says, he also gave us a kind donation. Ethan says, what a great time to be a Star Wars fan. Wow. And can't argue with that, can you?
Yeah, love the super chats. Thanks, everybody. They do go by. All the chats go by fast and furious. We do try to read as many of them as we can, and that's how we'll be taking your questions tonight. We'll give you the sign and when we'll be paying very close attention to the chat, and you can send us your questions or your comments, and of course, super chats are always welcome. But let's get into it. Guys, what did you think? Slave One versus the Imperial Shuttle. I mean, did you ever think you would see something like that? I mean, I don't know if you can really call it a dogfight, but it was just the visuals. And Paul, let me ask you, because I have a hard time putting this into words. These vehicles, these environments, the technology is something that we as 40-plus year Star Wars fans know backwards and forwards. But how is this show able to make it look so new and yet so familiar at the same time? It's just boggles my mind how it's almost like they're somehow reading my thoughts that I had as a 10, 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid. Like they're going into my imagination. It's just spectacular the way they do it.
Well, I'm going to start with kind of how the show ended for me, which was basically Athena saying to me, "Why are you crying?" And me being completely unable to tell her.
Yeah. It took me a while. It took me a while. Yeah.
She was like, "Is it this? Is it that?"
Yeah.
And it was, I just feel like every week it's been escalating one week after another. And the one thing that it's really knocked me out of the park, knocked this out of the park for me this season, has just been the execution of the designs. I mean, just amazing design work. Like even the truck in the previous episode was just amazing. I was looking at every inch of that, just kind of thinking, this is just such an incredible thing that they've built. It looks so real.
The juggernaut.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider like what television was like back in the 70s and stuff, and then look at what we're getting now, I mean, it's worlds apart, right? I mean, this is movie quality design and visual effects on a television budget. It's just incredible. So,
well,
I mean, for me...
Because, Paul, I know you can, and I say this lovingly, you can be a stickler on some of this stuff. You have
total nerd.
You have that eye. I mean, that's what you do. You're a concept artist. You're a designer. So where do you rate things like the Slave One, the Imperial Shuttle, the TIE fighters that you're seeing? Do you see the type of consistency you'd like to see visually?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like this. A lot of the design that's in this particular season is stuff that I've wanted to see for a long time. For instance, the big thing for me, design-wise, was finally seeing how the inside of Boba Fett's ship works. And kind of what made me laugh was Athena was immediately like, "Oh, you're gonna hurt your fingers," leaning on the wall. With it spinning all the time. You're like, "Oh," you're like Clouseau or something. Leaning on the globe. But. Yeah, so it was great to finally have that in my head and go, oh, right, now I get it. Now I understand how that works, So, yeah, I just thought it was incredible. Hey, Yancey.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you, Yancey. The guy's so generous with the super chats and the comments, and especially when you talk about the community, Rebel Force Radio listener community, and the compliments that you give that. We really appreciate it. And a great way to keep up with all of that is through the official Rebel Force Radio Facebook group. So if you want more RFR and to hear from our community, go over there. I tell you, something that I didn't know, did we know that Boba Fett or that the Slave One had an ion cannon that would neutralize ships that way? Is that something new?
That's new. That is new. But yeah, you'd have to think Bounty Hunter in the Galaxy's got all the latest gear and that sort of technology we saw the Rebels able to use, and the Rebels were sort of a ragtag group, and so if ion cannon technology is available to them, you'd think it would be available to the best bounty hunter in the galaxy. That's my guess. But we've never seen it. We've never seen it, and it was so exciting to see the Slave One, even just on screen with the Lambda class Imperial shuttle, but to actually see them in action, and what about that visual through the cockpit window after the Slave One had disabled the ship, and it just rises up and over. It was what a inspired shot, my God! And I was just
you're just going to see him peeking out the window, don't you? Like kind of staring at you.
Yeah, right. So intimidating. And then within seconds, the Mandalorian is on board the ship. They sure make it easy for outsiders to get on board your starship, you know? I mean,
They boarded real fast, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, I at least
They
lock
really
my
did.
doors when I'm even sitting at a red light in some neighborhoods. So definitely I do that. But, you know,
I'm sure
when
there are
you're flying
certain
around
star
in space,
systems too, you know, that they do
Yeah.
that. Jim, I wanted
you
to
have
ask
one of the
you-
most wanted targets in the galaxy in Dr. Pershing. You at least lock the doors on the ship, but they never do.
Well, you know, arrogance sometimes can be a costly thing. Jim, I wanted to ask you, you know, something that's that I loved so much about Rogue One, for example, and this felt a little bit more Rogue One to me in terms of how far they went. You know, I said at the beginning I couldn't believe that we got more than just a cloaked figure pulling a hood down. They just kept going and going, just like they did with Tarkin, just like they did with Leia at the end of Rogue One. But something else that it does is it provides a little bit more of sort of the humanity, the dialogue, the conversation that they didn't necessarily have time for, that George didn't have time for in the original trilogy because they were going from, you know, action scene to action scene. Things like we learn why Cara Dune has the tear tattoo, you know, for Alderaan. The argument that she gets in with the captain of the commander of the Imperial shuttle, where he says destroying your planet was just a small price to rid the galaxy of terrorism. And then the comment she makes about, he says, I was on the Death Star, and she goes, which one? But it's that stuff that that dialogue that just opens the galaxy up and makes it feel more real. At least it does for me.
Oh my God, yeah. You know, it's Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau. All hail Jon Favreau. We have a guy who is making Star Wars and doing it 1,000% correctly. When was the last time we've ever been able to say that? We couldn't even say that about George Lucas sometimes, you know? Although we do show reverence to the maker himself, but John has picked up the ball and really run with it, and he is scoring touchdown after touchdown. I'm so impressed with him and the way he has crafted this sequel to Return of the Jedi we've always wanted. As Billy Mack said to us in his text today after viewing it, he said, this is the Star Wars dreams are made of. That's high praise. That's really high praise when you think about Billy Mack, who's been a Star Wars fan for 43 years, and you know, since he was 5. And there was no way he could have been a Star Wars fan before that because there was no Star Wars. Billy's been there since the beginning, and this is stuff he's been dreaming about, and he's finally seeing it on screen. This episode had a set of balls on it made of Beskar. It really did.
Yep. That's no space station. That's a pair of Beskar balls, yeah.
Oh, I love hearing Paul say Beskar balls. I didn't know that would be, that's a real bonus to that comment.
Wampa snowballs.
That.
That's the one.
Yeah, you know, something...
I was very impressed by the risks taken because they were risky to bring back the greatest Star Wars character of all time in Luke Skywalker and present him to us in his prime. We were being criticized not too long ago for asking for this kind of thing, and we were told that would just be silly fan service to see Luke Skywalker acting like some kind of superhero. Oh, God forbid. Well, we got it. We got it. And I scratched an itch, and it made up for some lost time. As Paul said, it was great to have Mark back. And to see him essentially having his Vader in Rogue One moment, where we actually see the character at the peak of his power, doing exactly what we always imagine that character does. Yes, please. I'll take a second helping.
When did you guys kind of go, right, it's definitely Luke?
When the X-Wing docked. When the X-Wing docked in...
Not me.
Because at first... Yeah, no, I understand, and I watched.
That's why I'm asking. It's not. Yeah. It's not
I'll tell you why. When the X-wing flew in, I thought, oh, well, who is this? Is this the Filoni X-Wing pilots? That's who I thought it was because there was some
Can you imagine how disappointed we would have been?
Yeah, if it was just Dave. You know, what are you guys doing? No, it's not. It was Ian Savage. Thanks for the $5. Amarim sucks, he says. And that's in reference to Chris Amarim, who's our graphic artist for the website. And so it's good to see Chris has his fan club. He's holding court on Star Wars Squadrons. They get together and apparently bust each other's balls, and now it's spilling into
Their
the
Beskar
paper
balls.
chat. But the Beskar ball. But when Kara said, you know, one X-Wing, great. You know, that's gonna make a difference. I'm like, and there was no response when they tried to get the pilot to identify himself. I'm like, are they really going there? Are we really getting Luke? It can't be Ahsoka. She doesn't fly around in an X-Wing. And we were speculating maybe Mace Windu or Leia would show up and be that Jedi that responds. But the only answer is Luke Skywalker in this situation. Anything else would have been a disappointment. I mean, sure, it would have been great to see maybe Sam Jackson come back or some sort of. They'd have to, you know, again, they would have to de-age Carrie Fisher and also resurrect her. And that's kind of dicey because they have said in the past that they were not going to CGI Leia. Yeah. They've said that in the past. Now, that may be changing with the leaps in technology and everything, and if a deal's made out with her estate. I believe Mark Hamill actually had to sell the rights to recreate him. Or at least he had to sign off on it, at the very least.
Well, he got a casting credit. What do you know about that, Paul, from a inside the business aspect when it comes to you? Have any insight into these likenesses?
Warner Brothers own my likeness, so already twice over. They do. They did full body scans for two Harry Potter movies. They did full body scans in 3D, and you'll find like a 20th of the audience in all the Quidditch matches and things like that are basically muggins here in different hats.
They're all you?
So, yeah. So I'm the crowd, or a lot of the crowd. Yeah.
You're the crowd. Aren't you some sort of Hogwarts guy?
Yeah, I was a wizard teacher, one of Snape's lot. Yeah, it's quite funny.
One of Snape's lot.
I think the document you get, you have to sign is quite scary because it's such a breakthrough thing. I mean, it's not so much now, but back when I was doing Harry Potter movies like 10 years ago or something, the document was like for tying you to any usage for technology invented now and yet to be invented. So clearly they were already thinking about like using that data in VR or whatever comes next after that. So yeah, I mean, I just watched this and just kind of went. For me, it was the moment was when you saw the glove. The second you saw the glove, that was it for me. And I just instantly, I was filling up as soon as I heard the X-Wing. And then as soon as I saw the glove, it was just like, oh my God.
I'll be honest, The Mandalorian has us conditioned to when we see that X-Wing, it's either Filoni or it's that other dude. And I thought, oh, here comes Filoni in blue. Always at the right place at the right time. And then I thought, oh, geez, is it going to be Crazy Mace jumping out of this thing? Oh, is it? Oh my God! Is it Ezra and Chopper? Oh no!
God, it wasn't
because I didn't think like Jim said. I didn't think they were going to have the Beskar balls to do what they did, and they did, and it was just it was incredible. So I feel like I had enough doubt going that I didn't realize it until that green lightsaber was shown, and I was like, oh, it can't be anybody else. And I was watching it with my wife, and I mean, it was like, and I'm not exaggerating, it was like somebody just like took my breath away. I was just like, it can't be. But the question of fan service, I was thinking about this all day today because I knew that was going to come up. And the question I have is, was it fan service when George Lucas gave us the line, Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi? Was it fan service when we finally got to see the duel on the volcanoes of Mustafar? No, exactly. That's not fan service. That's just telling the damn story with the characters that they've built and we've loved. And it wasn't about subverting expectations. It was about exceeding expectations. I think George Lucas his motivation for giving us that duel on Mustafar, we can make arguments whether he accomplished it, was to give us the greatest lightsaber battle that we could ever possibly imagine. It wasn't about fan service.
It's where you're wrong there, Jason. Actually, it was a nod to Frogger. That was
Frogger. What, the video
Frogger?
game?
Yeah, where they're hopping on like little platforms across rivers and water and things.
He's just goofing.
Yeah.
It's Frogger.
Jumping from platform to platform.
I did notice the Frogger cabinet at ILM last time I was there. I was like, why is there one of these in every office?
Somewhere he's going, George is watching this going, yeah, Bateman finally got it.
Yeah,
it's all about the Frogger.
Love Frogger. Crack the code. I got the high score, bitch. Oh, sorry.
But I mean, really, I mean, when you think about this idea of fan service, and I'm not saying that. I mean, honestly, I mean, fan service for me, though, I think it can exist, and I think we've said you kind of recognize it when you see it. It feels inauthentic. I think that's the thing, and this felt very authentic to me.
Absolutely.
If anything,
I think my feeling about it was basically, I just at the end, well, all the way through it. I'm reluctant to keep criticizing the sequel trilogy, but like, why did we get that hot mess when give me 5 minutes of this episode seriously over those 6 hours? They're just so superior in every respect. For when it comes to the way it looks, the design, whether or not we care about the characters, fan service, yes, but like also, I mean, we're in this. It's a book series in a way, It's like you don't suddenly write a different book, we have expectations, and that's okay, I mean, yeah. But it was just such a thrill to finally see Luke after all these years. I mean, it was very hard not to just fall to pieces the second I saw him, And there were a bunch of different podcasters talking about this, and I tripped over the Star Wars Theory guy who was chatting about. And he was clearly very emotionally impacted by like Luke coming back. And I think his remark was that Luke was strength for him at a time when he had no strength as a kid, when he was going through tough times. And I think for so many of us, in one way or another, we've looked to Luke as a character that we can kind of, kind of depend upon and look to as kind of an inspiration. And his positivity and his attitude and his can-do-ness has always been a great support to so many of us. So to just like whip that away for the sake of novelty in The Last Jedi is why I'm so disgusted with that movie. And I'll never respect the sequel trilogy as legitimate Star Wars movies. They're not. Whereas this,
you know what, Paul?
It's like even with a completely different actor inhabiting Luke's body, because they had a stand-in and a CG face, for me, this was more Luke than the Luke that actually was Mark, So,
yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree, and that doesn't mean. And I've seen you say this on your Facebook page, and you're very outspoken about how you feel about the sequel trilogy. And people will say, "Well, Paul, I really like the sequel trilogy," and you're like, "Hey, like what you like. That's okay." But this is my Facebook page, and like what you like. But this is my Facebook page, and I'm going to tell you what I like and what I don't like. You're free to comment, but I think you're bang on when you say that there's a level of authenticity here that I don't feel. And here's the thing, hindsight's 20/20, and I'm going to soften this just by saying that, look, I didn't know what I needed until I got it with this series. And when you put it in comparison with the sequel trilogy, oh, hold on a second. Thanks. All right, the kids just dropped by, and they insist that I wear this.
The Santa Claus hat.
So I'm putting the Santa Claus hat on. I was in the middle of a really exciting point. Actually, hey, this is my daughter. What did you texted me as soon as you saw the episode tonight? What did you say?
Hi, Bailey.
Well,
Hey, Bailey.
Oh, I said it was really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Parker, what did you think? What did you think of the episode? Come over here. They can't see you. No, don't act like this.
Parker's always
All
hilarious.
Right. You say something serious? Say something for real.
There he is.
All right.
Yeah.
That's not Parker. That's Baby Yoda.
Sometimes I feel
thought it was good.
Okay. He
Yeah,
thought
there
it
you
was
go.
good.
There you go.
You'd think this
You
kid
could-
could put a cogent sentence together, but trust me, he can. I don't know what
Hey, he
happens
got his
when he
point
gets a
across.
microphone. Yeah, right.
He got his point across. It was good. I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
All right, get out of here, all of you. All right.
Swang for the holidays.
Well, yeah, right. What were we talking about? We were talking about fan
Yeah,
service and
authenticity.
and authenticity. And I didn't know that I needed this series the way because I'll tell you the thing that I loved so much about Force Awakens was the downed TIE fighters, the downed Star Destroyers, the wreckage of of that world, going back to that world. But it really felt like they abandoned that after Force Awakens and with Last Jedi and even with the Emperor and Ian McDiarmid, and as cool as it was seeing him as Emperor again and all of that, it didn't feel like that same universe the way this series feels like that same universe. It was like Star Wars-ish.
It's something that LucasArts was always able to achieve with the video games. Games like Dark Forces and Shadows of the Empire, etc. I always felt like that had a legitimate grasp of the nature of Star Wars, the tone, the look, the feel. And I notice a consistency with The Mandalorian in the same way. It really puts you in the universe. Even a simple thing like the Death Star droid just walking by for a couple of seconds. By the way, friend, RFR friend Chris Bartlett.
I had a thought that might have been Chris.
Yeah.
Good for Chris. Excellent.
Yeah. That's his. I know he appeared at least one other time this season when he was the educational protocol droid in Cleaned Up Navarro, when they dropped Baby Yoda off at school and he had cookies. So many cookies he puked. One of the great moments of the saga.
Talking about friends working on the episode. It was one of my buddies over at ILM, Doug. I didn't talk to him, even though he was involved in the facial reconstruction for was it the Irishman? You know
yes. With De Niro and Pacino.
Yeah. So I figured like if this is going to happen, Doug might get involved, and I can't tell you how much professionalism it took to not go, "You're not working on Luke Skywalker, are you?" And just ask, But it's like I can't put him in that position because I'll be able to read it,
Yeah.
So it's like, So,
well, I'll tell you, Paul. Even though you had those suspicions, you never gave us any sense that you heard that going on behind the scenes. So Paul is a true professional. Everyone,
I appreciate that.
So close to the vest.
I appreciate that. Thank you. A lot of people clamor for spoilers and they want to break the news about something happening with the plot, etc. But I'm glad that The Mandalorian somehow is able to avoid a lot of those leaks. Somebody informed me on Wednesday that there were heavy spoilers floating around online. Sometimes I get heavy floaters in my eyes and my brain. But,
enough of that.
But no, heavy spoilers. Oh yeah. Well, all right. No, you're not.
Right,
you're
enough
not,
of that.
You're not pulling me down that way. But so I said I wrote him back without even barely looking at his text. I said no spoilers, not looking. People assume just because we talk into microphones, we want to break the news. Quite honestly, there's a lot of info we get that we don't share with you because we don't want to spoil some things. Other times we're sworn to secrecy. Other times we just let it fly. It's hard to really, juggle that stuff. But sometimes when, as I said to Jason, when to hold them, when to fold them. And that's kind of how we approach things like that. So I try to avoid big spoilers like that, specifically for myself, because it sucks away the enjoyment of being surprised by Luke Skywalker suddenly showing back up. Oh, my God. I still can't get over it. I'm still walking around saying, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. It's really what an experience. What a viewing experience. Forget what you know about Star Wars. Forget what you've read in encyclopedias and atlases and everything. Just put yourself in that moment. And as a viewing experience, oh my God, it was like second to none.
One of the things for me too is the fact that, like you're saying about me being kind of nitpicky visually. and being so happy with the Mandalorian and how perfect it looks from start to finish this season. But for me, looking at Luke, it was easy for me to kind of look at that and kind of almost break it down and explore where they've succeeded and where they haven't, and how close it gets to how he actually looks and how far off it is. But at the same time, that was kind of secondary, even though that's a part of what I'm involved in. I just looked at it and went, "That's Luke Skywalker." And however slightly off it wasn't off enough for me to kind of go, "I have a real problem with this." I could just accept it. And also, there is an element of kind of knowing that the technology is constantly evolving. So for a fact that give this another couple of years and they're going to absolutely be 100% on the nose, and they'll just go back and retro this stuff. So I'm just impressed with them, like you say, for having the guts to do it.
Paul,
because it opens the story so wide.
You were predicting a couple of years ago with some of the tech coming through the Star Wars video games that they were going to be able to do complete movies, complete films with original characters, CG modeled.
They're already getting there. I mean, if you look at Disney has its own YouTube channel that's for its research department, and if you look at that right now, there's at least 5 projects going on that were solely about recreating human faces. So they're doing it in some instances it's complete from scratch, where they're putting one brand new face over another face. There are other ones where it's kind of changing the aging and youthening faces, so it's changing things different ways that way. But all sorts of different approaches. So they're not just going for the straightforward kind of options. They're going for every option there is. So clearly they're experimenting a lot because they realise that there's going to be value to this down the line, because it can't be cheap. I mean, they've got at least 5 projects on the go over at Disney's R&D department. So they're planning on doing a lot of this.
So they're not going to be slowing down. Now, a few people, and I promise we are going to get to other moments in the episode other than Luke Skywalker, but so we'll be here for a while, folks. And just for those that are asking, we won't be taking calls tonight. We will be asking you to put your questions in the chat. So if you're listening, we'll have you put those questions. And if you can actually start your comment with a couple of question marks, that kind of identifies those for us, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. But a lot of people are saying, guys, that they're looking at this episode and saying, well, now I'm really excited for Kenobi, or I'm really excited for Ahsoka because of the courage, the Beskar balls that were shown in this episode, that they are willing to go the mile. What about you? Do you look at this and go, well, now I really can't wait to see Kenobi?
How easy is it going to be to make Anakin look as young as he was in the Clone Wars? Right? Flashbacks.
Well, Hayden still looks fantastic. Hayden, right?
But he's close anyway. I mean, you could probably do it with makeup, but
just put a wig on him. He's ready to go. I guess they never put a wig on him, did they? I know they did. They put a wig on you.
For the shots, I believe. Yeah. No. Actually, no. I believe that Hayden was wearing extensions for Revenge of the Sith.
I don't know, man. When he was running about on the sets in the UK, he looked.
Well, you saw him, yeah. My God, Paul was on set with him. He would know. Did he look like were those real locks or were those extensions?
Well, when he was out on a cigarette, he was still the hair, so I don't think it was a weave. I don't know.
I think when he went up to Obi-Wan on Mustafar, he should have pulled the weave out, taken the heels off.
What I can't get over is the number of films I've worked on where you get like a false beard or false hair or whatever it is, and they treat it like it's more valuable than you are, because often it is, right? It's an expensive bit of kit, and they'll put the thing on one at a time if you're really important, But
my favorite story from Star Wars comes from episode 1 when they were shooting in Tunisia, and Tunisia was hit with one of its biggest storms ever. And they say they found Liam Neeson's facial hair about a half mile away from the set.
Wait a minute! Are you telling me Liam couldn't grow his own beard? That was
he actually that was actually makeup. Yeah, he didn't have actual facial hair.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on with Kenobi's beard continuity in Attack of the Clones is so bad, isn't it? That's just
and his hair.
I never noticed that.
The
hair is rough. The hair is rough.
His mullet goes all over the place. It's
that beard in the lift is just like what.
The whole shot in the lift.
They put these eyebrows on his moustache or something, or I don't know. It was all wrong.
He's like a Mr. Potato Head. They just mixed him all up. I promise those of you in the chat, you're saying they're talking about the post-credit scene. We're going to get there. I promise we're going to get there. And
we'll get there.
And yes, Jimmy Mack is vindicated. I'll be the first to say it on the air. Jimmy Mack is vindicated.
Well, I was hearing from sources way too good. I didn't, a lot of people were all over me saying, where's the Boba Fett thing? And I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. But even after that Disney presentation last week, some really good sources were still telling me, hey, just wait. It will be announced. They probably have to wait till after the Mandalorian season wraps up. I didn't expect to find out after the credits exactly get that confirmation, but there it was.
Yeah,
folks are getting confused about whether or not it's like going to be series 3 of the Mandalorian is a Boba Fett show,
right?
And it isn't, because there are 2 different shooting schedules altogether. So when they're filming the Mando 3 is a totally different date to when they're shooting the Boba Fett
Paul,
show. So it's not the same show.
I'll be honest. I was relieved when I saw you write that on Facebook, because I fell into the same trap. I thought, okay, well, so
it's confusing. It looked that way. Yeah,
it looked like between Kathleen Kennedy's statement about the next chapter will be in December of 2021, and then you saw that the Boba Fett thing.
I tend not to listen to her
December.
much since she's been such a letdown with the Ryan trilogy. You know how much I've been looking forward to that. So since that, it's like I can't believe a word she says to me. I just feel betrayed.
So, Paul, you're saying that, don't worry, we're going to get both, is what you're saying. We're going to get Mando season 3.
That's what I'm hearing. All I can tell you here is that I'm hearing shooting schedules that don't line up. So even though everybody's saying it sounds like they might be getting released at the same time, I think that's either wrong or maybe they back into each other. I mean, they may change the story, and but right now I'm hearing that's 2 different shooting dates. So.
Yeah, and it sure looks like it will be the Boba Fett series that drops on Christmas. Yeah. Kathleen Kennedy's famous the next chapter. Well, it's going to be happening on Christmas. That's what I believe. And that's why I was so skeptical about all of the websites reporting that Mandalorian Season 3 was going to debut on Christmas Day 2021. I was very skeptical about that, and I told you guys over and over again, well, we have to understand the Lucasfilm double talk that goes on. And I'm fluent in double talk, quite honestly. I can read between the lines of anything they have to say. Because I'm tired
like George
of
Lucas saying it when George says it's a really great film and never doesn't talk about it for another 3 years.
It's like, it'll look good. But that's what you have to do. You have to pay very close attention to the way these things are worded. They go through so many filters before the news gets presented to us, and you have to really, really look between the lines. You got it.
I'm going to say,
go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, Jason.
Yeah.
While it occurs to me to mention this, something that I really noticed about obviously we haven't spoken about the announcements, and I won't get into it because that will drag us into another 4 hours. But what I did notice was the size of the set construction that's going on for Cassian Andor is crazy. I mean, they're enormous. They're film sets.
Really?
So it's not the same setup at all as we're getting with the Mandalorian. It's a totally different kind of scale that they're operating on. I mean, we've got gigantic buildings with like 3 stories, and there isn't anything like that being constructed for the Mandalorian. Even though there is some actual set parts being constructed, it tends to be modular and like a wall or an object with a screen behind it, or part of a ship or whatever. But for Mandalorian, they're building huge corridors and enormous buildings. So they're clearly planning on it
for Andor.
For Andor, they're shooting it over in your neck of the woods, right? They're shooting. They are,
yeah. But it also looks like that they isn't it going to be longer? It's looking like it might be 12-parter or something.
12 episodes. I predict it will cover 3 months. From September, October, November, or maybe it will bleed into December a little bit, because they're going to want to give us a show in the fall. They're going to want to give us a Star Wars show in the fall, and the thing that is most likely would be the Andor series.
Yeah, I mean, last thing I wanted to say about this while I get a chance to talk about it is a lot of people are kind of worried about the number of shows that are coming into development. Although it is unprecedented and we've never heard anything like this. I mean, in all the years I've been a fan, who could have predicted like they're just gonna go, and another 10 shows. I mean, mind blowing. I mean, I was trying to keep up on Twitter, kind of like going, and they've announced, and before I was finished typing one sentence, they're into 2 on from that. I was like, I can't keep up.
It was exhausting that day.
It was like, I
was going to have a heart attack. And especially, Paul, when you put it into perspective, us as fans, how long were we waiting for George Lucas's Star Wars live action show.
I know, right?
And then that got put on the shelf.
Forever.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
and that's one series. That's one series. And
Yeah.
here
I
we
mean,
are now facing 10 series.
I know.
Oh, my God.
I mean, the thing to bear in mind,
God.
I would say, is that although it does sound like an awful lot, and it is, really, but at the same time, if you break it down, if you're looking at shows that are maybe only half an hour long sometimes, through to shows that are maybe 50 minutes long, and then you're looking at some seasons, it sounds like the Boba Fett thing might be quite short, maybe 7 or 8 episodes, just like Mando, and certainly we're hearing that Obi-Wan might be 4 or 6 episodes.
Right.
So once you start averaging it out, you start to realise that we're actually only talking about maybe 60 or 70 episodes of television, and it's over the course of a couple of years probably. So you start to think like, well, that's, if you look at how TV shows used to be back when Star
Right.
Trek was popular, it was like 25 episodes as a normal season. So when they were using two Star Trek shows running concurrent, that's 50 episodes of television in a year. So this isn't undoable at all. I mean, if anything, it's just a smart move, because what they're probably doing is they're probably going to flick crews from one project to the next one over the course of a year and keep it going, which is the way to do it. It will make it more productive, and it'll get a faster pipeline, and it'll mean that they can constantly keep us fed with Star Wars. So I wouldn't panic about them overdoing it. To me, this sounds like a sensible pace. But
And of course, having
anyway.
3 series, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Rangers of the New Republic, and Book of Boba, all in the same timeline, they can reuse a lot of the same costumes and sets, and I would imagine things like that. Paul, it's so great to have your inside the business, inside the industry knowledge here at work for us. We really appreciate it. Now, since the show is called The Mandalorian and not Luke Skywalker, we want to just pivot a little bit and talk about the Mandalorians in this show. And there was a great scene there on what Trax, is that the name of the planet where he meets up again with Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves, where they meet Boba Fett. And it's a bit of a scuffle, and I love that. What did Boba kept calling him? Princess. Princess.
Right.
But there was something where he said, my father was a Mandalorian. He claims to not be a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
He goes, my father was a Mandalorian. And she goes, you mean your donor?
Yeah.
Which
and,
was
and she
like,
never, he
almost
never,
like, you got the sense that was like using, the N-word or something. Like, that was below the belt, that comment.
Boba never said my father is a Mandalorian. He simply said, this is my father's armor.
My father's
said,
armor. That's a good point.
Your donor. And so
Yeah.
it kind of indicates she might even know who Jango Fett was, that he was the template for the clone army. She certainly said, she's very familiar with the sound of his voice and everything. And I thought that was interesting. But yes, note, he did not say that my father is a Mandalorian. We've since learned, this season, that Jango was a foundling.
Yes.
So he's as much a Mandalorian as Din is a Mandalorian.
As Din. And that's where we start, that's where this divide is. Also, there was another great line. I think it was Casca that says to Boba, I've heard your voice 1,000 times.
Yeah, that was Bo.
Or
That was
Bo-Katan.
Bo who said that,
Bo-Katan. Again, great world building, or I shouldn't say world building, but contextualizing and going deeper under the surface of this universe with this dialogue. But you look at the 2 factions of Mandalorians. On the one hand, you've got the foundlings and those that, like Din, that are religious about showing their face, can't show their face. But yet at the end, he does. And he's done it a couple of times. So he's bending those principles. Then on the other hand, you've got the Bo-Katan contingent. She won't even let Din hand her the Darksaber. He's willing to bend his principles.
Right. This is
in
confusing.
expediency. And the way that Gideon was really playing them off of each other and getting into their heads and, it's not going to be that easy. No, you can't just hand it to her. No.
He was great.
He was fantastic. He was fantastic.
Can we consider the history? Can we consider the history of the Darksaber for a second?
Yeah.
When Bo-Katan originally came into possession of the Darksaber, it was gifted to her by Sabine, and she accepted it with, of course, the affirmation of the various Mandalorian clans who were standing there when it happened. They all pledged loyalty to her, and she was also, because of the fact her sister was the Duchess, she also is kind of next in line to the throne.
Right.
I think, legally, right? So, but she did accept the Mandalorian Darksaber from Sabine Wren. And there was, Sabine yielded it just like the Mandalorian did in this episode. And Bo accepted it. So what's changed? Why is this a different situation? We don't know how Bo... Now, the thing is, we don't know how Bo lost the Darksaber. And we don't even know if Bo lost the Darksaber directly to Moff Gideon. I think that Night of 1,000 Tears may have been where this incident happened, when Moff Gideon became the owner of the Darksaber, or the keeper, I should say.
Now, Jim, there was a comment in the chat that is, and by the way, that's great recall that you had. I had forgotten about that detail. So we've already seen a bequeathing, a peaceful passing on of the Darksaber. But someone says, where do we find that here? I just want to give credit, but the difference was
B-Ride Donna.
The difference was, the difference was that what happened was done in front of the clans, and that could have been the time.
Right.
So
I did say, they were all there, and they were pledging their loyalty to her. But if it's just, I think that's a mere technicality. Because you had some other Mandalorians standing around. You had Din there, who was fine with it, and she just refused it. So and the way
Lane Brain is saying Sabine did not win the saber in combat either, so it was hers to give away.
Yeah,
that's true.
So
that is true.
We don't really know how all of this works. Exactly.
No, I mean, I guess one of the things that tickles me is the way that quite often people knock the fact that planets in Star Wars tend to have one topography. They're entirely snowy without a hot patch. They're entirely hot without a cold patch, and yet when it comes to kind of races in Star Wars, we do tend to expect them all to kind of behave in a uniform, predictable way. And I guess Mandalore is a big place, and there's probably a lot of different ways of looking at things. So we should expect it to be messy, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I'm curious with the child, Baby Yoda, Grogu, out of the picture and over Jimmy's right shoulder.
He's safe. Jimmy's got him. Yeah,
he's got him. He didn't go away with Luke Skywalker. He's at Jimmy Mac's house.
No,
I'm training
on his
him.
couch.
I'm training
Luke's on his
him
couch,
myself.
man.
Guys, do you think that this, the Darksaber, the two factions of the Mandalorians? I mean, there was obviously peace brokered with Boba Fett. I mean, he did eventually fall in step with Bo and Casca. They managed to put their differences aside, but I see Din with the showing his face now in 2 episodes, going more and more to that other side where perhaps he's not going to be of that same persuasion of the we don't show our face, the foundling side, maybe the Death Watch side, if that's how you want to categorize it.
Don't you think
moving
he's just
over to that
connecting
side
more
of things?
Don't you think he's just connecting more and more to the child, and he wants less of a barrier between him and the kid? So it's like it's almost the whole Mandalorian thing is so secondary to him, like next to being a father, So he's all about the kid right now, and all this stuff is suddenly not important,
That's right. That's a really good point. It's and of course Star Wars is a lot about that. I mean, the original trilogy was about the things that you do for family and what Luke did for his father.
Can I just say, when the kid walked away and Mando was kind of like stiff upper lipping it and just kind of like really kind of holding it together, and the second the kid turned around, he just lost the cool. It was like, it just
dude,
totally
Yeah,
Totally
yeah.
fooled
My
me. It's just
my
too
wife
much.
was we were watching the show together. My wife was sobbing, with just tears streaming about Baby
I was right
Yoda
there
and
with her.
that moment, and it rips your heart out. I mean, I'm like trying to catch my breath. I'm welled up because I'm just watching Luke Skywalker open a can of whoop ass on these Darksaber or these Dark Troopers.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the moment where he has to say goodbye, and how incredible was it that it was R2-D2 that gave that little guy the courage, the curiosity to say, I'm getting teary just talking about it.
Did he know him?
To have the
Did he know-
courage
did he
to
know
cross
him,
that
Jason?
that
I mean,
line.
He's from the Jedi Temple. Did he know him?
True.
I mean, he would see R2 about, right?
Maybe.
I mean, that little kid is all about the gear stick, and he's a little kind of a thing like R2 with all these glowing lights and everything. Is going to be fascinating to a little kid like that. But
Well, no, I don't. There was definitely a connection, and of course, anyone that's been to a Star Wars celebration knows that there is a connection between kids and R2-D2.
Of course.
There's something so relatable. There's something. There's just it's a connection that R2 has, and it was just so cool to see that. It was also cool to hear Stink in the Scud Pie again. I noticed
Skank in the Scud Pie, give me 25 cents. Gotta save Baby Yoda. Gotta pay the rent. Yeah,
do you
that's
guys-
a
do you
famous
guys-
song there.
Do you guys see this this Mandalorian, the Darksaber, the Mandalorians, the two factions becoming the new focus of the series as we would go into season 3 with Baby Yoda, Grogu, the child?
I think it's
maybe out of the picture.
I think it's going to broaden into the underworld altogether. I think given that. Although I don't know. I mean, maybe it's going to skip into that side of it. Might skip into Boba Fett's series, being as he's at Jabba's and he's clearly looking to be the new gangland boss. So maybe that's going to get covered there. I think maybe Mando's going to probably focus more on the political side of it, like you say, and what's actually going off on Mandalore. It's going to be interesting to see how they redesign it for TV. I mean, the whole idea of it being basically turned to glass by the Empire is interesting.
What does that mean?
I mean,
Visually,
yeah,
what
I
that
mean,
might mean.
Yeah,
Well, we saw it was pretty decimated. In the Clone Wars, it was a pretty decimated planet. They had to live in these domed cities, and it was like really rough living on the outside. And then, of course, the Empire came, and in a story still to be told, they completely wiped out everything on the planet. Is what I'm led to believe.
Guys, I just got
a
I got a text from a friend of mine who's been a guest on the show from time to time, John Pica, and he has a great theory. He says it was R2 that saved Grogu from the Jedi Temple.
I don't see how that could be.
There's a thought.
I don't see how that could be.
I think it's a good thought.
R2 can do anything.
I don't see how that could be because
He can do anything. It's R2-D2. Come on, he can do anything.
R2 was
the
never
day.
around. Yeah, this would have had to have happened during Order 66, where Baby Yoda would have been ferried to safety. You don't have R2 actually in the Jedi Temple during that time. You don't.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I just loved it. I remember when we were talking about there's no way it's going to be Luke. I mean, sure, I'd love it to be Luke, but it's never going to be Luke. But if it is Luke, he's going to be in a shadow in the distance, and we're maybe going to get to see R2-D2 or whoever's with him. So I expected him to show up if Luke was around. So
maybe I'm wrong. Let's consider where R2 was when Order 66 was levied. Because he was in Anakin's Jedi fighter and accompanied Anakin to Mustafar. So R2 must have been somewhere in the Jedi Temple at that time. How do we not know where R2 was when Order 66 was given? How do we not know?
Let's go back through it and look, wouldn't we? Have to go back and
where was R2? Now I heard that a rumor that I interpreted to tell me that we'll hear the story about how Baby Yoda escaped in the Bad Batch series. We will learn that the Bad Batch. Here's exactly what I was told. That the Bad Batch will have to protect something very valuable and very young So they would, and that's what I was told. And so I was like, well, of course it's Baby Yoda. But I forgot there were two other infants in the Star Wars universe around this time. And I'm thinking specifically of Baby Leia and Baby Luke. And, things kind of jump around at the end of Revenge of the Sith as far as how they were finally dropped off to where they needed to be dropped off. So I think the hint I've been given, because I was never told explicitly that Baby Yoda was going to be rescued. I just kind of jumped to that conclusion because I was told it was something very young, very precious. And I thought, well, of course, Baby Yoda. They're going to want to cash in on Baby Yoda and figure out a way to bring this character into animation. Of course. That would make all the sense in the world. And I still think it's a possibility, but I've since been, I tried to get some clarification, especially once other websites started to report that I was saying that Baby Yoda is going to be in the Bad Batch. I'm like, well, I better really try to get to the bottom of this. And, again, it's one of those things, misread the prophecy.
I have a thought.
Because I think it could be Leia now. I think it could be Leia in the Bad Batch, but I wouldn't be surprised still if it's Baby Yoda.
What if we find, something that a lot of people have been asking is, what on earth would take Kenobi off Tatooine looking after Luke? Well, what about getting the heck off Tatooine because he hears about Baby Yoda? I mean, it's the same time period-ish. Considering like Baby Yoda is 50, and if Hayden's included in it, Anakin's included it, it's a fair bet to say that the Emperor has something to do with it, and Coruscant has something to do with it. So if something was going on with Yoda, maybe Kenobi would go to make sure he was okay. I don't know.
Paul,
it's maybe far-fetched, but we don't know.
When do you think we'll see this Kenobi series? I'm predicting beginning of the year 2022. What do you think? Maybe sooner?
It sounds that way. I mean, we heard the rumblings that things were happening at Pinewood long before the series was announced. So clearly that was back when they were developing the sort of movie version. And of late, it's kind of gone a little quiet. But, I mean, obviously we're now getting official announcements and stuff like that about when they're shooting. But, I think that's about right. Especially when you consider that it'll be... it's for TV, so it's not like a movie where you'll be waiting 3 years for it,
Our friend Bo Stevens, he says, love seeing Paul on cam, sending love your way, happy holidays. And he sent us a very, very generous donation. Of course, we've hung out with Bo, most recently in Star Wars Celebration Chicago, enjoyed some fine cigars with that young man, and he saw all the craziness unfold as, when you hang with RFR... Hanging with RFR late night, that's not for the thin-skinned, or the weak-stomached.
No.
So thank you, Bo. Thank you, Bo.
Cheers,
Let's
Bo.
talk a little bit about Moff Gideon. This was probably the most Moff Gideon that we've seen, or more shades of the character, played by the great Giancarlo Esposito, who is such a contrast to the characters that he plays. He's such a jovial and jubilant gentleman in interviews, and yet he plays these quiet, sinister, creepy characters. I do love the line when he says to Mando, he says, just assume I know everything. And that is just such a chilling,
it's creepy,
thing. But how much of what you saw in that, from the battle to his capture to him on the bridge, was he kind of making it up as he goes along, or was he? I kept asking myself, is he just a great chess player, and he was 2 or 3 steps ahead and was playing this out? I couldn't figure out what the writer's intention was with him. Was he just playing along, or was he just making it up? What do you guys think about this guy?
Well, I think that he, obviously he had to start improvising once the Jedi showed up. But I believe he had confidence in his technology. He had confidence in his Dark Troopers. And that confidence then got totally shaken by the time Luke showed up. So he got desperate and shot Bo-Katan, who thought Bo was dead. I did, because that removes then...
Yes, I thought that too.
That removes the whole eventual showdown that's going to happen between the Mando and Bo over the the ownership of the dark saber. How is that going to get resolved? I don't know. But it has to be resolved some way. And so I thought that was just a clever way of removing her from the equation altogether. And then that would mean the Mando would be in sole ownership of the dark saber, whether he wanted it or not. But
I was
Bo,
sure
there's
Cora was going to get it. I was sure Cora was going to get it. You know, as soon as the gun started playing up, because because Gina had said earlier on about, like, you know, she was so much past tense talk about, I've loved doing this show. It's been great and all that. So I was like, they're going to take her out. And as soon as the gun started sticking, I was like, she's going to get it. So totally surprised that it was Bo that got shot.
Well, when she was talking in past tense, I mean, maybe she is done with The Mandalorian, and maybe she's moving on to her new show, like the Rangers of the New Republic. A lot of people are speculating that will feature Bo.
You know, the four of those. I know that Rangers of the New Republic isn't female centric like the the Acolyte is going to be, but I got to tell you, Bo and Casca and Fennec and Kara. They look pretty good together. I mean, they look great. A great foursome, you know.
And you know what's really peculiar is that I don't hear any of us complaining about it. Do you? It's funny. It's almost like none of us are sexist. It's quite bizarre.
Isn't that interesting? All of a sudden, all these toxic Star Wars fans love seeing strong female characters.
Well, there's an authenticity
when they're well written, and authentic.
Yeah, when they're great characters you care about. Yeah.
And there's an integrity to the casting. They are casting women who can kick ass. Seriously. When you think of Sasha Banks, a.k.a. Mercedes, and of course, Ming Na is just great in everything she does. She has she has all the geek cred in the world coming into this thing to begin with. I don't know,
and then time too, right?
And then And of course, Sasha Banks, she kicks ass in the ring. Gina Carano kicks ass in the ring. They can easily take on all three of us at the same time and kick our asses. And we'll admit it. And we'll ask for more. But then
I've seen Athena kick Paul's ass before. I mean,
you want to see
it? To contrast, but I just would like to contrast this.
With a sword, man, you do not want to mess.
No doubt, I bet you have, and you've been on the other end of that sword too, the pointy end. But I do want to say this: when I consider the casting in this show, and then I think about Rey in The Rise of Skywalker, and I think of behind-the-scenes footage of Daisy afraid to slide the toboggan down the sand dune into the Lars family courtyard. She's afraid. She's hysterical about it. And I just wonder to myself, well, I mean, she can't even do that. How am I supposed to believe she's kicking ass all the time? It's just that's where we require casting to really step up. Yeah,
I think it's like, why I often think about when I look back at the Matrix days and when you suddenly had all these actors that were having to pretend that they could do kung fu. So anybody that'd been doing kung fu for a few decades would look at it and kind of go, "Yeah, you can't do kung fu." You can kind of go through the moves, but it's not the same thing, And I think one of the advantages we've got with this is you've clearly got a few martial artists, you've got a few wrestlers, and you've got people that are physically capable. And it's not impossible to train an actress who's just, got a quality that you need. And I thought Daisy was incredibly charming at the start of The Force Awakens and thought she had a lot of personality and she was engaging and, easy to like. But she needed better training. Her sword skills were diabolical in The Last Jedi. They were absolutely terrible. She's probably one of the worst sword fighters I've ever seen in a movie. I've got to be honest. And this is speaking to somebody who's... All
right, well, let's, and they're saying it in the chat, too. Let's not hate on Daisy. She's a fine actress. She's a fine actress.
No one's hating on Daisy. There's a difference between hating
I blame
on
the
someone
makers,
and offering a critique of... It's the same way with Hayden. Hayden, I think, was in some ways a victim of a director who was not an actor's director, and he was very young at the time, relatively inexperienced. And I don't think George was. I love George, but I don't think he was the right director, in my opinion.
How interesting is it going to be to
for
see him in Kenobi? I mean, how different might it be?
Oh
You know,
my
I
gosh!
mean, with a different director.
right?
I mean, because a
And-
great director for a start off. You know,
And
clearly
Hayden's
good
coming in with a
actors.
chip on his shoulder. He's going to have a lot to prove. And but that being said, I have been rewatching the prequels lately and developing a whole nother appreciation for Hayden's acting skills. I really think he's bringing everything to the table. I think he's got his A game going on. It's just
I'm hearing
sometimes that dialogue is a little clunky. That's all.
I'm hearing that they're going to bring
Right.
Hayden in for a full body scan, and Matt Lanter's going to play him.
Get out of here! they're gonna use the Paul Bateman body scan. That's what they're gonna use.
Oh, all right.
Maybe
okay.
for Jabba.
Hey, let's we're gonna be taking some questions here. We're gonna go a little long tonight, folks. Hope you don't mind. It is the season finale. It's not the series finale, as some of you have been speculating. Paul sets us straight on all of that. Let's talk a little bit. Again, we're talking about Moff Gideon. Assume I know everything. He also mentions that even though it was a bit of a farce, he was just playing with Mando. When he was saying, "Yeah, sure, take the child. Here he is. It's fine. Just let me keep the Darksaber." And Mando seemed pretty cool with that deal. Like, I'm going to take the child. I'm going to get the hell out of here, and she can fight her own battles. But he says that I already got what I need. I just need the blood, and the blood has the potential, or is part of something that has the potential to bring order back to the galaxy. Is that Palpatine? Is that what you guys got out of that?
Yeah. They're obviously experimenting with cloning to create a new vessel for Palpatine's dark side energy to inhabit. And I think we're seeing definitely the origins of Snoke with this collection of blood. I think that it could possibly be the thing that fuels Snoke and what actually gives him his connection to the Force, even though despite the fact that he's created in a lab, he's created with Baby Yoda blood in a lab, and that changes things. That's a game changer, and I would be very surprised if that isn't the direction they're heading in with this little plot point.
It seems like that is the obvious thing with the people in the tanks and everything, But I do also wonder whether or not with them dipping their toes into Dark Troopers, I do wonder whether or not they might be thinking about Force-powered troopers. I think because clearly they'd have a massive advantage if that was possible.
Yeah, but they say the Dark Troopers are droids. Keep
the
that in
Dark
mind.
Troopers that we currently have, but obviously they're at one point, I think when they're playing around with that in the EU at some point, that they were going to have Force-powered troopers, or at least they were trying to, if I remember right. It's been a long time since I've read that stuff.
It rings a
Sure
bell. What's
sounds
the
familiar,
line that they say about the Dark Troopers? They say, well, it eliminates
the human-
the most vulnerable thing, the human inside, right? I think that's the thing that they mention. What do you guys think? We knew that we were going to see a battle between the Beskar staff and the Darksaber. They sort of telegraphed that a couple episodes ago. Where does that battle rank in your mind with some of the other great lightsaber battles? Were you satisfied with this one?
I loved it. The fight work in this episode was amazing. I felt like it was great to sort of see some real, functional, tough street fighting going on with a little bit of kung fu in there. Great mix. I loved the guy who was in the Mando suit. Clearly is a skilled martial artist. I loved all the stuff he was doing with the spear, where he's kicking it off his heel and everything. It was beautiful stuff, and really not like a real novelty to see some like a fight with stormtroopers with a spear. I mean, who thought we were going to see that? Taking them out in the throat with a spear. It's like, wow. I mean, it's
the
quite
brutality.
edgy.
Yeah.
There were moments, guys, where I was like, wow, the brutality in this episode. The choking out of the stormtrooper, all of that. It was like, wow.
It was like Walking Dead at times. When he stuck the spear in the up in the guy's helmet, it was like killing one of the zombies from Walking Dead.
Well, and I thought
fighting with the Dark Troopers too, like prizing the head off and stuff. That was pretty wild.
Well, I thought Gideon was going to get that shot off into his, under his chin like that, and I thought, what did they just do?
Yeah, and he shot Baby Yoda. What the?
He shot at Baby Yoda, and the way Din slid in there and threw himself in between.
Yeah, total dad move.
It's
like
it's
Secret
total dad move.
Service.
It's a father's love. Yep, it's a father's love. Now, Paul, you had mentioned Harry Potter. You were on the set of those films, and we know that Dave Filoni is a big fan. And my wife said, hey, you know, this Darksaber seems to be a little bit like the Elder Wand in the Harry Potter series, where it follows from, you know, one to the next. Jimmy Mack is shaking his head.
I had to roll my eyes at that.
Because he's never read a Harry Potter book.
Never.
Dave
I've
Filoni,
seen all the movies.
It's clear that's a concept that Dave Filoni, I think, borrowed from the Harry Potter series, of how you have to have a battle in order to actually be the wielder of the weapon. Sure, I'm sure it has its origins in mythology of days old, but I think that Dave goes to the J.K. Rowling and J.R. Tolkien well a few times.
Paul, isn't there something, now I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but isn't there some sort of tradition with samurai in feudal Japan about, you know, claiming a sword and things like that, or am I thinking of something else?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I know the idea is that you're not supposed to let it out without bleeding it. So if you don't draw it unless you mean it, you know. So there's an element of cutting your hand on the way out, if you know, or on the way back into the sheath if you've not actually hurt anybody with it. So I guess it depends on the stories you read, I suppose. But not that I'm aware of. I mean, I was swords, you know, they're all family swords. You do get that.
Yeah, certainly. And, you know, and when that it wasn't offered as a criticism, but when that analysis was offered to me, I said, and J.K. Rowling didn't borrow anything from George Lucas about the gifted child being raised by the aunt and uncle. Come on, please. The whole thing is a lift of Star Wars. But you know what? They all borrow from each other.
Lift from the Bible, really.
Right, George borrowed from the Bible and Wizard of Oz and Tolkien and all of that.
No. Where you're getting confused here, though, Jason, is that Star Wars is a documentary, and the rest of works of fiction.
Oh,
yes,
that is where you know I forget about
Disney made
that
a film that had something to do with it, like back in 2015, but it wasn't real. But if you're talking about George's Star Wars and Dave's Star Wars, this is the real thing, yeah.
This is it. I do like. I think it was Gideon that had the line. He said, "Without the blade," he was talking about Bo-Katan. He goes, "Without the blade, she's a pretender." Man, does his dialogue really cuts to the quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Giancarlo Esposito.
They've all clearly got agendas, haven't they? There's a lot kind of going on here that you feel like. What's nice about it too is you feel like there's real meat to it. You feel like there's a backstory to all these people and why they feel how they feel. So I'm looking forward to that unfolding, and I feel like it will. Because, you know, clearly in Clone Wars we looked at that and there were comments made in the earlier seasons that didn't really kind of flower until seasons later, you know, sort of things that you thought, oh, that's a nod to this, or, you know, so I could see them like spelling stuff out now that might not pay off for a while, but yeah.
Well, and then, you know, I just can't get out of my head about how and I don't mean disrespect, because I know a lot of people find any religion to be superstitious. So I'm not trying to come down on religion, but what I think is interesting is, you know, Bo-Katan has the same hang up with accepting, and Jim pointed out that there could be some continuity issues in this concept, because we saw her accept the Darksaber in a more peaceful context. But this idea that she cannot accept the Darksaber outside of battle, very comparable to Din's belief that he cannot show his face outside. So they're both operating under superstition, and I think it's Moff Gideon that says that the real power of the Darksaber, and I'm paraphrasing, is the legend. It's not necessarily the weapon itself. Which
it was really the whole kind of Moff Gideon thing this week really. It cemented for me how cool that performance is. You know, I've liked it as we've gone along, but every week I feel like he's built on the previous week, and he feels like a more rounded character and more real character as we go on. And I kind of feel that next to Krennic, who's my favourite kind of Imperial since the original trilogy, I feel like Gideon is fast, kind of getting up there. I think because the performance is so nuanced and so real, and you just feel like he's a very unique type of baddie. He's got something special going on. You feel like there's. Like, it's always nice when the bad guy. You feel like there's definitely a lot going on between the ears, and he's clearly a smart actor doing a lot of clever stuff for this performance. I was really impressed with what he did. And the costume as well is beautiful. The closer you get to it, the more you realise there's all these different fabrics and, the piping on it and everything. It's a really beautifully made piece of costuming, It feels like he's got wealth, There's something about it that says he's got maybe from a rich family or something.
Now, I want to ask, because I too am a big fan of Giancarlo's performance and the character. Did it start to fall apart a little bit for you? Because for me, when he had that confrontation the conversation with Din, with Mandalorian, about, it was almost like saying, hey, I'm a reasonable guy. I already got what I want. I'm not interested in killing some kid here. So I keep the Darksaber. You get the kid. Get the hell off my ship. I'll take care of the rest of them. It made him feel very multidimensional. But then when he sort of betrayed Din, in a sense, then I'm like, okay, now he's back to a cartoon character, cartoon villain twirling the mustache.
No, I thought that was just brilliant because it sucks you in. It sucks you in. For that moment, you think that, oh, wow, this is going to be resolved without so much bloodshed, without putting Baby Yoda at so much risk, without putting the Mandalorian at so much risk. But it was just a ruse. And I love that because it completely... it completely shows you what a slime ball this guy is. It just revalidates that notion about his character. And it's like little things like that it's like Darth Vader choking a guy. It's like Darth Vader choking his own officers. It builds a level of treachery and evilness to the character that I think makes the character even more enriched for, future appearances. We know that he survived. He didn't have one of those cyanide tooth things that he could bite into, which I thought was, if you're going to ask your officers to wear one of those things in their mouth and expect them to use it, then you should go see the dentist yourself and have one of those put in, I think, but he didn't have one. So he went and he actually put the gun to his chin. Kara just punched him in the face, knocked him out.
Scared of Thrawn. He's scared of Thrawn, clearly. He's like, if I let these guys get away, Thrawn's going to get me.
Well, that's possible, but I mean, I think he believes in the cause to reestablish the Empire in the galaxy, and he has all the secrets and information, and he doesn't want to reveal any. He doesn't want to put himself in a position where he's going to reveal that via interrogation. So he wanted to put it into himself to protect the Empire, to be a hero for the Empire.
I almost took that whole scene as like kind of being one of those things where I almost felt like, is he maybe actually considering just letting him go? But then he's so much of a snake that he just thinks, but now I'm looking at the back of your head, you're so stupid, I'm going to get you. He just can't help himself. And then at the same time, people who knock Mando for being who he is, I think you could say he's a bit dim sometimes, but I think he's sweet. He's got a good nature and he wants to trust people. And that's what sets him apart from Boba in the largest sense. I think he wants to think better of people, even people like Moff Gideon. So I don't think it's so much he's stupid as he's kind.
And it's almost a Sith. It's almost a Sith part of his personality kind of revealing itself. You know how the Sith always, they'll suck you in, and then before you realize it, it's too late. It's too late. You've been manipulated. And that's what the dark side is all about a lot of times. And, I sometimes wonder, does Gideon have any sort of connection to the Force? Could he actually be strong in the dark side? He's yet to reveal it. But sometimes I wonder.
You wonder. Paul, I want to go back to something you said just a minute
Jason.
ago. No, it's all right. You seem to infer that perhaps if you follow up the food chain from Gideon, you get to Thrawn. And we've speculated on the show back and forth. Would Thrawn be a fellow competitor, with a guy like Gideon, or do you think he's calling the shots of Gideon? Because we've theorized that perhaps there are multiple Gideon-like people trying to ingratiate themselves with the Emperor and fulfill his or further his goal of finding this clone body and this donor and all of that.
I think what makes this tricky is the fact that we're skipping from legends to a new reality, and we're not quite sure how things are recontextualized. Plus, we're moving around in time, so it's hard to kind of know for certain. Do we know for a fact what rank Thrawn would be at this point? I mean, I guess would he be an admiral, or I'm not sure. So
well, I mean, he would be Grand Admiral. He would be Grand
Yeah.
Admiral, wouldn't he? Because wasn't it
point.
the Emperor himself who appointed him to Grand Admiral? So,
Well, that's what I
yeah, he
assumed,
would
but-
still be.
So Moff Gideon's definitely under him then, I guess. You know, you would think he's definitely his subordinate. You know,
Yeah.
even though the Empire's kind of splintered, so maybe it's different factions. But I don't think they're painting it as being that complex. Being as in the Ahsoka episode, we have like a petty fiefdom on a frontier town who in the top brass are clearly in the service of Thrawn. So it kind of figures that maybe Gideon kind of has to be. You know, he wouldn't just have those kind of people in his service, would he? He'd definitely have the top brass that he can get. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm really curious about who they cast as Thrawn, because clearly they're going to have to deliver in that respect. And I don't think they're going to necessarily use the guy that did his voice. I think they might go for somebody who's
I hope
a little
not.
bit more.
Really,
Yeah, I don't think he's got the right
I would
look.
love to see Mickelson, or even the other Mickelson, the on-screen Mickelson, Mads, play a.
Yeah, they
a
can't do Mads,
Thrawn.
can they, with him being in Rogue? I don't think they do that.
Oh, good call. I totally forgot
You know.
about that, Paul. Great call.
Yeah.
I do think that the Dark Troopers were truly terrifying. By the way, they
Yes.
really did
Intimidating,
give
weren't
me. I really thought they represented an amazing threat. The fight between just the one and Mando, which of course I had no idea at the
synchronicity.
time. Oh,
The fact they're in sync, you know, they're both kind of going like they clearly have a shared consciousness, you know, in a way that I don't think really came across with battle droids, even though it did kind of. But with this, you kind of felt that they were really unified, you know. It's and the way they just smacked his head into the wall. I mean, it's a good job they didn't at some point kind of go, oh, hang on a second, this little squishy bit under here, I'll just pull his head off.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's just pull his head off.
Smack him in the face over and over again, you know.
Dark
Dark Troopers.
They were. I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
Oh, they just gave me sort of a Terminator sort of vibe.
Yeah.
You know, and then when Din lit that one on fire, I was thinking Ghost Rider for a second. You know, I was like, wow, the Ghost Rider. I mean, that's just like little things that I was being reminded of along the way.
I was thinking of R2 lighting the super battle droid on fire in Revenge of the Sith when they were, just holding him up, and R2 did the I
just look at all this stuff that we're getting that's been pulled from the EU and think that this is the best argument ever for why they need to continue doing it and do it more. I think because in a lot of respects, I feel like the EU has been a testing ground for for Star Wars, and to kind of say, well, okay, what do people actually think is cool? And generally, I think that we seem to share a consensus quite often about what we like. So it goes without saying that carrying that across into a theatrical or a TV show is probably going to always get a favourable reaction. You know, so they shouldn't have a problem with doing that. I think it.
I called the EU the Farm League. And I didn't necessarily mean it in a bad way, but I often called it the Farm League for the big screen stuff.
Well, I hope with Thrawn. I hope with Thrawn that they actually are able to establish the Heir to the Empire trilogy in some way. I mean, you bring him back 5 years after Return of the Jedi. That's the same time period, and so I would think that would just. That'd just be
now
absolutely
Paul's
wonderful. You know, I mean, think about it. There are elements of that story that can be brought in. And speaking of the Dark Troopers, Nick in the chat says, it makes a comment that was exactly something I said to Michael Mack as the Dark Trooper was pounding Din's head into the wall. Rock'em sock'em robots. That's what I was thinking. Rock'em sock'em robots.
I think it takes a lot of guts for a company to recognise the fact when it's screwed up, right? And I know this is an opinion, just an opinion, But at the same time, it's you look at things like Highlander, and they made a second Highlander that was just a complete mess, and everybody just kind of realised it, acknowledged it, and going forward they just decided to just pretend it never happened. And I appreciate that these are massively expensive movies, and it's ridiculously unlikely that they would ever completely write them off. But there are ways to mess with the continuity to the point where we say, okay, now things go in a different direction. We've seen how they rebooted Star Trek. We've seen how in things like Avengers you can do a Thanos snap. It is possible to just change the future and make it all new. It is possible, and I think it's a smart thing to do. I think that most of the fans that I encounter would like them to do that. I know there's thousands of fans out there who love Rey and love the sequel trilogy, but I still think it should be seriously considered. They should seriously consider doing away with the sequel trilogy, because as it stands, we kind of know what's coming, and a lot of people don't like it. So just be rid of it. You don't need to hurt the fans that love it already. They can still look at that as a separate universe. They can look at it as a way things could have turned out. But if they do something creative, I mean, if you can't do it in Star Wars, where can you do it? I mean, it's a fantasy environment. It's space fantasy. It's not 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's full of all kinds of mythological elements like crystals and force powers and wizards. What's the problem? Snap your fingers. Be done with the rubbish. This is what
I want a T-shirt that says "Snap your fingers. Be done with the rubbish."
Yeah, you'll be so respected as a company. I think with a lot of large companies, they're kind of scared, like, the fans will realise it. We know that you're human beings. We know that you make mistakes. We know that people get involved that maybe, sometimes people get jobs that shouldn't have got jobs. And it's just the way it works. And sometimes films are bad. You made 3 bad ones. That's fine. We forgive you. Look at this show. You're making amazing shows every week and everybody loves it. Get rid of the sequels.
Snap your fingers.
Snap your fingers. Snap happen. Okay, all right.
So many fans would respect you for it.
All right, it's time. We want to go ahead and we want to focus our attention. No, it's all good. No, it's all good. We want to focus our attention on the chat right now. Yes, amen, Paul. Go, Paul. Paul is on fire, as they're all saying. So go ahead and get your questions, your comments that you want to go on the air here in the chat, and please maybe precede those with a question mark. That would help us out as we start to focus our attention on what you're saying. Thanks for the super chat. Clark, he says, does knowing that Luke's Jedi Order failed diminish the feeling of triumph that we feel from Grogu being taken away to be trained? Question. All right. Okay, so obviously many people are drawing the conclusion that Grogu was with Luke Skywalker and with his new Jedi Order when all broke loose. I have a theory. I think Grogu escaped, and I think they could be looking at perhaps, if there's going to be an episode 10, if we're going to see the continuing adventures of Rey and the others. No, you know who I'm talking about.
He doesn't even remember them. He doesn't even remember them.
That
speaks
Rey
volumes.
Finn.
Yeah.
No,
that speaks volumes.
I know Rey and Finn and Poe and Rose and etc. And Dominic Monaghan, whatever his name was. But could there be a moment if we see an episode 10 on the horizon where Rey has to find Grogu? I think that Grogu, the child Baby Yoda, could be the new anchor character in the Star Wars universe.
If we ever get episode 10, it's 100 years in the future. Rey died in a bizarre fishing accident on that island where Luke.
What is she, Natalie Wood? She hanging with Chris Walken on the boats there?
She went, Jedi fish with like 50-foot fishing rods. And balancing in choppy seas, right? So she's clearly fishing. That's
I'm just writing this down for my fanfic. Bizarre fishing accident. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's get to some questions. Here we go. Eric from Phoenix says, Cara Dune wears Marshall badge as a belt buckle like a cowboy. Big belt buckle seems to fit. Oh, that's a cool detail. I didn't realize that. By the way, I did have a note about Cara. She was quite the justice machine. She wanted to bring. She's very interested in the intel that Moff Gideon can bring to the New Republic. So interesting how her marshal status has sort of given her this new clarity. Also like to see her being referred to as a dropper. It's almost like a derogatory, slangy term for the sniper. Yeah, get out of here, dropper.
I think they identify her by the tattoo on her arm. I think that's what sets her off. Yeah. I think that's how people know.
Who cried and how hard did you cry? I know I should. Okay, I have a confession to make. I do have a confession to make. I gave Jimmy Mack a hard time because he admitted that he got a little misty at
a little misty
at Rise of Skywalker.
I did.
He got.
It was just
up.
It was the finality of it all and everything, and I was just really caught up in the moment. But this was different. This was different.
I have to eat a little crow here and say that I didn't sit there and weep, but I was so overcome, and the tears were welling up, not just in seeing Luke reclaim the mantle as my hero, the hero of my childhood, but then the parting of Grogu, Baby Yoda, and the Mandalorian. As a parent, I really felt that. I really did. XX Bam SXX Jerky, whatever the heck your screen name is. I did get a little misty. Paul, you raised your hand. You got a little misty there, seeing your childhood hero back.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1983, man. 1983. I was like in my teens. And looking forward to seeing more of him, and I had no idea about the prequel situation, that we'd be going to the prequels first. In fact, at that time, I think, until we knew for a fact that the prequels were coming in the late 90s, I think it was a possibility in all our minds that, well, surely they're going to follow these actors through, because while they've got them at the age that they need them, they're going to do the sequels first. And then maybe one day, like in years from now, they'll go back and do the prequels. That's how I assumed as a kid. So, yeah, I mean, seeing Luke right there in front of me, even in this CG form, was just so satisfying and so happy. It made me so happy to see him. And I didn't recognise Luke in the movies and in the subsequent movies, but I sure recognised him in this, despite the CG. I just thought, yeah, that's him. That's the guy that I know. That's Luke Skywalker, and that's the guy that I care about, and I'm glad he's back.
So Paul, you have no concern about Mark Hamill being credited as Luke Skywalker in this episode?
Well, it was his voice, it felt like him. I mean, what impressed me was it actually sounded like Mark post 1983. It didn't sound like Mark now, He wasn't like, hey,
Jim, are they able to de-age? Are they able to de-age the voices like they are able to de-age the faces? What do you know about that, being an audio guy?
Well, I do know Mark Hamill is an expert voiceover artist, and he does have great range at doing voices when he wants to. And there may have been a little bit of an effective way that he was able to maybe pitch up his voice a little bit. And also there's ways that you can pitch the voice up just by using audio software. I don't know how they did it, quite honestly, because it really did sound very, very, very legitimate. Yeah. And keep in mind, there's so much with technology now where you can feed a voice sample into a computer and it will be able to replicate that voice and say things based on things you type into a keyboard. These technologies do exist. And so in able to recreate the voice, I think maybe the people at ILM are using technology similar to that. And that's going to get real dicey as we go into the future when all of a sudden you hear yourself saying a bunch of things you never said.
Here's a question from Jesse Luke with the Super Chat. What are the chances that Rangers of the New Republic is going to be a version of the Jedi Rangers from Legends? Luke, Sebastian Stan are similar, Grogu, and others getting down. What do you think? Could Rangers of the New Republic actually be sort of a Trojan horse for Jedi action?
I think Jedi of the New Republic has more marquee value myself. So I don't see it going that way. I see this more like law enforcement of some sort.
Probably,
Yeah.
but don't you think that there's got to be? I mean, I know we have Ahsoka as a key Jedi character, and it's looking from her logo and everything that the Force is going to feature heavily in her show. But at the same time, I think there is room for potentially more. I mean, certainly looking at this now, I mean, how do you have Luke Skywalker turn up and take Baby Yoda away and then just ignore that, like until the next time that we see him? I mean, clearly they have to. Butt up against it somehow. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if we did have a show that was about hunting for Jedi. I mean, it's an obvious plot, right? I mean, it's something that we'd all like to see.
That's the question Peter asks. He says, where will sweet, sweet Baby Yoda appear next?
Sweet Baby Yoda.
What do you guys think? I say a comic
Kenobi.
book, maybe a novel. Oh, Paul
Kenobi.
with the Kenobi series. Interesting.
Just think, how do you get Kenobi off that planet? Right? If he's sitting there thinking, I've got to protect Luke, and then he goes, wait, what? There's there's a young Yoda with massive amount of midichlorians. Either that, or, I mean, I also assume that maybe there's something to do with, it could be like Leia is getting tracked down by Vader and he's starting to join the Naughts, in which case it could be a plea for, we need your help, Kenobi, come protect Leia, or throw him off the scent. So something's got to drag him off that planet. And I think, it's either Leia or it's, some other person that he cares about as much as Luke. So that's a short list.
Yeah, I'll be disappointed if he leaves planet simply to go on a run to In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah.
Here's Chris. Chris is asking, will Mando be back in his own show, or where's his next stop? Paul, you kind of talked about that at the beginning. You believe that just the story, or what are they calling it? The Tales of Boba Fett, whatever it is. That's not going to. That doesn't imply that there's not going to be a Mando season 3. Next
there's a
fall.
couple of reasons apart from the shooting schedule thing that I said earlier on as well. Is that also, I'm forgetting his name now. The guy who plays Mando. He was
Pedro
Pascal.
Pedro was on Instagram talking about being happy to have signed up for season 3 of Mandalorian. So clearly he's expecting to be back. So they're not. So if he's back, they're not going to put him in Mandalorian season 3 and call it the Book of Boba. I mean, you wouldn't take Mando's show off him if he's in it. So
right.
So there's that. So
Jimmy Mack,
there's 2 shows.
I'll throw this to you from Chris. Do you guys think that we'll see Grogu again? Will Mando see Grogu again? Is the child, is Grogu, is Baby Yoda out of the Mandalorian series, do you think? Is this the final chapter?
No, I mean, they foreshadow it in the dialogue when he says, we will see each other again. I will see you again. So they totally foreshadow that. And it would be disappointing if they never had a reunion down the road. Yeah, that would be disappointing. So I think we'll definitely see a reunion.
You guys think it's smart to take him out of the picture? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
I think it's brave. I think it's a brave idea. I think it's a bold idea. Time will tell if it's a smart idea, but I think it's brave. And I think that's what was lacking with the sequel trilogy, where they just wanted to play it safe. JJ, I think, wanted to play it very safe. I think Ryan wanted to just be the smartest guy in the room. And what I like about this is that it feels bold. The show is called The Mandalorian, not Grogu, not Baby Yoda, not the child. But I understand where the question's coming from, Paul. He's the most popular Star Wars character since Star Wars. And an odd play.
I think it feels like in a Marvel style approach. Let's take this popular character and push him into other shows. So I wouldn't surprise me at all if he suddenly starts showing up in other things, and that's kind of a bit of a draw to a new show. If he's with the Rangers or if he's with Ahsoka, or that pulls the audience in, and then even if it's only for an episode,
it's a good thought. Could grow well. And I was saying this earlier. Is he the new anchor character? At least for these 3 series, could he be the bait to get you to want to see a new show? Not that I feel like they don't need it. I feel like Mandalorian has really proven itself. I mean, the Favreau-Filoni team have proven themselves. But do they think the suits? do they think that you need like a Baby Yoda to, get people?
Oh,
to
I
tune
think
in?
the suits want to put Baby Yoda everywhere. It's probably we have a responsible storyteller named Jon Favreau who's doing it the way he wants to do it. He's not going to be influenced by focus groups and Bob Iger sitting in his ivory tower. He's going to. It's not dollars and cents blinding him. The only thing Jon Favreau's interested in is telling a straight, clear, straightforward Star Wars story in the best way he can. And he's doing a great job, and nobody's going to rock that boat. Now, me personally, as much as I love sweet, sweet Baby Yoda, I had to look back at him.
Looking over
I think that it's appropriate we take a break from the character and maybe expand the galaxy beyond Baby Yoda and see where the stories go. So I'm okay with a little break from the little guy. I am. I don't want to see him get milked so much that his appearances don't mean anything to us anymore.
Now,
It's a
Charles
tough position-
asks. Sorry,
It's a tough
Charles
position
asks.
to be-
Well,
Sorry.
oh, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Time lag. Sorry. It's a tough position to be in when you think about it. In that it's unusual. You've got this character who's quote unquote 50, but they're essentially a baby. I mean, how do we progress this character without suddenly leaping forward at least another 50 years? So we're all kind of stuck with this character as a baby, and in one sense, it's a bonus because it's kind of like having a like Lassie or whatever forever, never dies, never grows older, But on the other hand, it leaves a lot of regular kind of characters kind of a bit stuck in a corner. And I've already noticed at this point, just purely from a kind of like a setting up every episode kind of point of view, is that they always need to find a place for Yoda to be. They always need to, he's either at school or with a mate or. So that's kind of a bit cumbersome and does trip up a story sometimes. So I think it's quite sensible to wheel him away for a little while, even though we all love him. I think.
Wow.
And also, Paul, keep in mind though, we don't know anything about the growth cycle of one of these little guys.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 50, right? But he's like a toddler. So I think that at some point he's going to go through a rapid growth
Got like a growth spurt, you think?
and then all of a sudden we'll have, Yoda the teenage years and, hanging out in Riverdale with Jughead and at Pop Tates.
We won't call him Baby Yoda. We'll call him Teenage Yoda.
Yeah. Or we'll
have big feet and pimples. Is that what we're gonna?
I remember.
Baby Yoda, the Oxy 10 years, Baby Yoda, Stridex pads for Baby Yoda, all that stuff.
I remember those years well. I remember talking to you boys about many years ago, talking about where'd you go. I think it might have even been pre-sequel, like before the buyout, and we were exploring, what we might like to see in future stories. And I remember saying at one point, when you look at characters that have died and passed away, like Yoda, for instance, like the original Yoda, I remember thinking like it's a tough sell to kind of suddenly replace that character without it seeming like a cheap impersonation. And I think that does tend to happen, when you just replace a character with another character that's meant to replace them. Sometimes it's kind of transparent. And I remember saying at one point, like, what I was hoping was that perhaps Yoda's teacher, Yoda's mentor, had at some point gone away to the Outer Rim somewhere to learn all the, more things about the Force. So maybe centuries ago, while Yoda was still, maybe a couple hundred years old, like his master left, and then during the sequel trilogy, I was hoping that a character could come back that had trained Yoda, so that way you'd have that kind of physical connection, but there'd be nothing like him physically, but they'd have that credibility because you'd kind of go, Yoda learned everything he knows from this guy. It's like a new master showing up. So I was kind of anticipating that kind of thing in movies in the future, but now, years later, we're looking at a trilogy and all that we've got. So I'm now anticipating that eventually they're going to have to make this giant leap in both directions. They're going to have to do movies that take place hundreds of years before the original Star Wars and hundreds of years afterwards. So what I'm wondering is where Grogu's going to be. Isn't it kind of inevitable that we could end up with a story, 500, 600 years from now, where we've got a distant Star Wars future that we're not familiar with, and the only thing that holds it together for us is Grogu. You know, I mean, we could have a brand new Jedi Council hundreds of years after all the other characters have died, and the only one that we know is him. You know,
Grogu.
So I think he was a sensible character to bring into things. You know, I just hope they take care of him and keep him safe. You know.
Yeah. Good, Paul. I like that whole idea of Grogu on the Jedi Council of the future.
Want to acknowledge the excellent stuff from as always from Paul Bateman. Nick is asking, is Grogu doomed by having attachments already?
No.
What do you guys?
Because he's so young. He's so young. That things like this got outgrown. He'll end up forgetting all about the Mando.
That's what they said about Anakin.
We were arguing a case about this the other week anyway.
No.
I mean, I remember saying, I think again this is a very, very kind of conservative idea of a Buddhist philosophy. It's not about having attachment; it's about how you deal with it when you lose it. So the whole kind of the way it was kind of played out in the prequel trilogy was kind of a bit confusing, I think. And my feeling about all that is that a lot of the characters would have benefited from more attachment. So a large part of Anakin's problem, even though it's not really written this way, but I look at it and kind of go, if his mum had been around, things would have been different. If Qui-Gon had been around, things would have been different. So it wasn't about the lack of attachment. It wasn't about having too much attachment. It was about not having enough. You know.
Wow. Paul with the profundity tonight.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
Really good stuff.
A lot of people think Paul's just laying in bed. Paul, are you laying down right now? I mean, because it sort of does look that way. Doesn't it look that way? Like he's laying down in bed?
Look at this. Yeah, there he is.
He's like that the beatniks used to hang out, and there would be like some beatnik in the back of the room, and he'd be laying there, and then he'd only sit up to lay down, like, the very profound philosophical messages, and then he'd lay back down.
I just want to say that the reason that Paul has got the sheet up behind him is because he's involved in some very exciting, very secretive projects. And his career is in full swing, and we're happy for him, and we're grateful that he's taken the time and being with us tonight. Here's a super chat from Circle City Traveler. Not a question, but just a nice comment. A day long remembered. Many cheers to Jason, Jimmy Mack, and Paul RFR family. Many cheers and a round of Jedi Mind Tricks on your indie pads. Next time we're all able to gather, a wonderful moment for Star Wars. Thank you very much for that. That's ridiculously generous.
Circle City Traveler. That's our friend Jim Borthwick. He was he's been an RFR VIP on Patreon. He's hosted RFR Q&As with me, and he's from Indianapolis. And Circle City is the RFR Bed and Breakfast. And eventually we will be meeting up in Indianapolis for a hang with listeners. At the RFR Bed and Breakfast.
Jim, isn't Indianapolis kind of halfway between the two of us a little bit?
It's exactly halfway.
Yeah.
So it'll be perfect.
Great.
After this lockdown, I feel an enormous need to get together with my fellow fans for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really, can you imagine
no
how nice
question.
It's going to be to get together?
And so we're not going to wait for some convention to schedule our hangouts. We're going to make it ourselves. So RFR celebration.
Eric from Phoenix is back with another super chat. Bib Fortuna says McClunky.
He sure does.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. There is an end credit sequence, and I would venture to say that maybe a third or half of the folks listening right now might not even know that this happened. But this is where they launched the Boba Fett series or mini series. Jim, thanks to you. I realized that we needed to go back and check out this post-credit sequence. Did you just let it roll, or how did you guys discover this? Because I didn't know until I tipped off.
I was in this vortex, like I said at the beginning of the show. I was watching the credits, and I saw Bib Fortuna, Matthew Wood. And I was like, holy crap, Bib Fortuna was in this episode? So I restarted the episode before the credits ended. And I watched the whole thing again, and I'm like, at the end, I'm just like, I can't believe I finally got the Luke Skywalker I wanted, and Baby Yoda's gone. Wait, I didn't see Bib Fortuna in there. So then I started it again before the credits ended, and sat there and watched the whole thing and forgot I was looking for Bib Fortuna. And then it ended again, and I finally let the credits play out. I'm like, wait a second, there's still like 5 minutes left in this show. Something's up. Something's up. And then I was like, Favreau! Because, you know, we
Paul,
know John.
Paul, did you just let it roll? I know that you watch this stuff while you're doing your artwork and your gigs. Did you just let it roll and then stumble on it, or did somebody tip you off?
Yeah, I like to watch this for the first time with Athena if I can, you know, so we can share in the experience and she can help me cope. And I was just watching. I was still in fits of tears. I really was. Like, you know, dribbly knows the works. And we were just sort of sitting there, and then, you know, but we looked at the timestamp and went, wait a minute, something's going on. And then as soon as I saw the redesigned Jabba's Palace, by the way, you notice he's had a few extensions and stuff. He's got like he's got a new set of windows. He's got like a nice sunroof and stuff. It's all a bit groovy looking.
Wow, so I didn't even notice that.
Bib's obviously updated it a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
So I was looking at that, and I was kind of like, I think the ramp's different too. It looks a bit steeper. I was thinking, well, I don't suppose they need to worry about Jabba getting up those stairs now. They can maybe made a shortcut. But yeah, I mean, as soon as we got in there and like it felt like, I mean, my first thought, Jason, to be honest, was like, Jason's gonna love this because it felt like this continuance of Return of the Jedi, you know.
Oh, it was such a sequel to Return of the Jedi, and
they even had the bird mobile in the corner, you know,
yes!
the same mobile,
yes!
and then the stairs have got this weird finish that so you can see the like chicken mesh through it, and yet that was all still visible and everything. It was like, oh wow, they've done such a good job.
And the characters inhabiting the palace. We had Ree-Yees in there. Squid Face was there. All of our favorites.
They seem to be arguing in the kitchen, don't they? Because Bib is suddenly twice the size, and the Gamorreans are half the size.
Yeah,
I think maybe Bib's eating all the food, you know.
Yeah, the food distribution.
You know, and Matthew is such a svelte guy, Matthew Wood. So they had to pounce.
They sure did.
Of Bib, but man, oh man, you know, Jon Favreau, of course, borrowing from the great tradition that the Marvel films have had all these years with the post-credits sequence, and we did get a McClunky out of there. And now, what do we want to infer, guys, about the Boba series? Is this going to be about Boba sort of leading the underworld there on Tatooine, or is it going to go back and
he's taking over?
He's taking over.
Somebody mentioned it looked like the King Conan post from the end of Conan. Do you remember that?
Yes, of
course.
Sitting
on the couch, it's just like Lord of all he surveys, you know. And then so I thought there was an element of that, but I immediately just thought this is going to go somewhere interesting. Don't you think that there's bound to, like, Jabba Jr. is bound to show up eventually? I think he has to
Stinky?
be. Yeah, he has to be old enough to maybe be trouble by now. Wouldn't it be cool to see a Hook?
Are we going to get a Rada the Hutt appearance in this?
Yeah.
They've got to go there. Surely they've got to go there.
Yeah,
right?
I like it. You know, throughout the episode...
If they can pull off Death Troopers, they can pull off Rada. Surely.
Of course they could. Are you kidding me? Throughout the episode, though, you know, Boba, he took off, jumped into hyperspace after the ruse with the shuttle Tidarium. And by the way, you know, a lot of people have mentioned this online. Of course, I thought of it immediately being a kid from the 70s, that when those TIE fighters were launching out of that launch tube, I immediately thought of the old Colonial Vipers from the original Battlestar Galactica, the real one, and the Buck Rogers series also had those launch bays. You know, obviously produced by the same company, so they shared a lot of aesthetics. Ralph. Wow, Ralph came up with it.
Yep.
Yeah, because of course he worked on the original Battlestar Galactica as well.
What I
that's
thought
great.
Immediately was that's a very, very narrow gap. You know, I wouldn't like to be getting in a fighter and going out of that gap.
Right.
If I was kind of a bit hungover, you know, be like, whoa, it'll only take like an inch, wouldn't it? And you're toast.
And true credit to this show. I mean, TIE fighters are things we've seen over the years countless numbers of times, but every appearance of a TIE fighter in this episode just seems so fresh and amazing. Like when they kind of zoomed in, you could sort of see the pilot in the cockpit prepping for launch and everything, and then you were in the cockpit with him, seeing his vantage point as the TIE fighter took off. I just think that, with the design that's simple and so burned into our psyche over all the years, I just think it was expertly done and fresh in the way they presented it. But Paul, before you go, I just want to get off my thoughts about Boba. When he made that jump into hyperspace during that whole battle, when the Dark Troopers were approaching the bridge and they were locked in and they had Gideon there, I thought, oh, well, Boba Fett's going to show up any second now for sure, and he's going to end up saving the day. I wasn't expecting Luke Skywalker until I saw the X-Wing, but I thought, hey, there's that element.
Where's Boba? Where's
Boba? And I thought maybe he might even show up with the crew. Like maybe he'd show up with Bosk or somebody. I don't know. But, he just took off and then eventually reunited with Fennec. And then Fennec appears going to be a lieutenant for him in his as he's the mob boss now, essentially. He is the boss of the underground. I wonder if they're going to take any elements that they were exploring for the Crimson Dawn and maybe transfer some of those storylines or potential storylines, whatever they were setting up in that Solo film. It could see light of day here, just reimagined for The Mandalorian and Boba.
Oh,
you think,
guys,
you think Maul could show up?
Maul.
I'm certain that all the familiar bounty hunters that we got in Empire, all of them are going to show up in the show. There's no way they're not going to get every one of them.
Love to see Dengar return.
But
Maul is. Well, not Simon though. Maul, though, I mean, he's dead according to Star Wars Rebels season 3, Twin Sons episode. He's gone.
It is. Yeah.
It's hard to keep
we've
it
said
all
that
straight.
before.
We've said it before, and I will tell you, from talking to some good friends of mine over the last 24 hours, the timeline is tripping up the more casual fan, and I'm not leveling that as a criticism, but they're often relying on friends like me to sort of keep them in alignment. Oh, hey. I saw that it was so cool, but when does this happen, and where's this guy, and what's going on with this character?
Tell them to download the podcast.
I say listen to Rebel Force Radio and listen to Paul
Hold
Bateman.
their hand.
Guys, we could go all night, but we got to wrap this up. We've been going for a while. It's been such an amazing time. And Paul, I have to say, dude, everybody loves hearing from you. We love having you on the show. We know it's a sacrifice for you to stay up so late. Thank you to you, Athena, and anyone else who is compromised by having you up so late. We love you, and thank you so much, and the listeners love it as well. How would you sum up your thoughts about Mandalorian Season 2 and what's in store for us all on Disney Plus and the future of Star Wars?
I think that this Star Wars is obviously in the hands of people that love it the same way that we love it, that appreciate the same things that we appreciate. The design just keeps going from strength to strength. They're making the kind of technological breakthroughs on this show that George was making in the movies. So I think that gives us every reason to suppose that these shows going forward are going to be as exciting and as innovative as all of George's movies were. So I can't wait to see where we're going. And I think don't be scared about the number of shows, because we are talking about a limited number of hours and we're talking about short seasons. And I think they are going to crew up. It's these productions are spread all over the world. There are people in the UK, there are people in the US. There's plenty of people to deal with this, and as long as we have enough talent at the top of the chain, we've got every reason to suppose that these shows are going to turn out well. So I've never been more optimistic about Star Wars since the buyout, because I think that it's clear that these shows are really working, and people are being very vocal about it, and people are buying stuff that's to do with The Mandalorian. The merchandising sales are going through the roof. I could just cross the street and go to a local supermarket. It's full of Mandalorian merchandise. I haven't seen anything from the sequels in that store. So clearly, the opinions of the audience. I don't mean that as a dig at the sequels. I mean it as a plus for the Mando. Yep. Clearly, whatever they're doing is working, and it is reaching the everyday guy. I mean, all I can tell you is all the people that I know in this local town that aren't traditionally Star Wars fans are asking me about the show, and they don't talk to me about Star Wars generally, but it's clearly getting through to people. So I think that's fantastic for the future of Star Wars, and it's great news for us. So can't wait for more.
There is a lot of love for you here in the Rebel Force Radio listening and watching audience. So thank you so much. Jimmy Mack, final thoughts, not just on Mandalorian Chapter 16, The Rescue, but Season 2, where we're headed, Season 3. What's going on? Final thoughts.
Well, I think we can look forward to future season of The Mandalorian getting more into Din as he segues into a life as a Mandalorian with the other Mandalorians, like Bo-Katan, etc., and adapting more to their ways, meaning going more helmetless. And it was really touching when he removed his helmet in this episode. And I'm happy that he removed his helmet in the previous episode, too, because that was a hurdle that he needed to jump over in order to be able to reveal himself to Baby Yoda in the end. I think it meant more to me having him struggle with it and then come to terms with it in time to reveal himself to Baby Yoda and hand him over to Master Skywalker. Did anybody think that Luke was going to get Baby Yoda and just pull one of these right over the shoulder? Did anybody think that was going to happen?
Not on your life, man. Not on your life.
I didn't either, but I just wanted to provide that visual for you guys and laugh laugh in relief at how Star Wars has had time to lick its wounds following the very rocky reception of the sequel trilogy. A once-in-a-lifetime shot to extend the story beyond Return of the Jedi with the characters we know and love that may have had a few missteps, let's just put it lightly. And this was a great opportunity for Lucasfilm to step back, lick its wounds, and really understand what exists at the core of Star Wars and what brings us fans coming back decade after decade for more. And I think they realize that with time, care, and patience, they can develop a Star Wars that will have universal appeal, just like the original from George Lucas. It's not an easy formula to crack, and I think the days of dealing with these quirky auteurs coming into the franchise and reshaping it for their own selfish interests are beyond us. I think that the actual core of Star Wars is top priority now. What is that core? Well, I think we all have our own definitions as to what makes it what it is. But I think the long-term fans have a very set in concrete approach to Star Wars. And I believe that that very set and concrete approach is something that's being appreciated by Lucasfilm now, where I think for a few years they had deaf ears to that stuff. And so hats off to our fellow fans who were expressive about their feelings about the direction Star Wars was going in. Because I feel like if we didn't speak up, the course correction would have never happened. And I consider The Mandalorian to be a massive course correction for Star Wars. Thank you, Dave Filoni. Thank you, Jon Favreau. Thank you, Lucasfilm in general, for doing the right thing, doing the best thing. And that's considering story first. And that's what I think we're getting with Mandalorian, is story first. So really happy with the way Season 2 has gone down. So happy to be able to spend time with you guys every week here for the past 2 months on Friday nights, spending our Friday nights together. You know, we're all still dealing with this pandemic and everything, and a lot of us are kind of locked in. So this is a nice opportunity for us to all get together and share our love for Star Wars via The Mandalorian. And as Bib Fortuna says, McClunky, and I agree 100%. That was one hell of a McClunky of a season. So thank you, Jason, incredible, as always, for being an incredible moderator. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And that'll do it for us here. 2021 is when you're going to be hearing from Rebel Force Radio again. And can't wait to get together and go on another wild ride with everyone Star Wars style in 2021.
Bye, everybody. Have a good
Bye.
Christmas.
And if you want more Rebel Force Radio, there's 2 great ways to do it. Go to rebelforceradio.com. Make sure you're listening to the flagship show, the weekly Rebel Force Radio podcast, and also our Patreon community, who are so incredible in their support, and they do watch parties for the Mandalorian after shows, and they do an after the after show. It's just it's amazing. So Brian Klein and the whole group over there, we know who you are. Thank you so much for carrying that flag for Rebel Force Radio so high and so proud. We appreciate it. That's going to do it for us. We will see you next year right here, Rebel Force Radio. Paul, again, can't thank you enough, my friend. We know it's a sacrifice for you to stay up so late, but we appreciate it, and we love you, and love to Athena as well. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time right here on Rebel Force Radio. For RFR, I'm Jason.
And I'm Jimmy McClunky.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.